Howdy, and welcome to this module of Building Partnerships for Community Youth Development. My name is Dr. Mike Edwards. I'm with the Department of Recreation, Park, and Tourism Sciences at Texas A&M University and Secor Youth Development Initiative. Now, the concept of partnerships and building successful partnerships is fairly complex, and to be honest, there's no way we could cover everything in a short module such as this. So my goal for today is to just provide some information, get conversations started in your organization and in your community about developing a culture that encourages partnerships to maximize the resources available for youth in your community. The reason why I'm here and why this is an important topic to me is that research is increasingly showing that a lack of access may prevent half of interested youth from participating in programs. And while many of you are sitting there looking at your programs and your facilities that are busting at the seams and with long waiting lists, may scratch your head a bit, but research is also increasingly showing that many community facilities, particularly those that are owned and operated by government agencies, are actually very much underutilized. And there's a lot of space and a lot of time that's being not being utilized to the maximum capacity to provide these programs and services. And we know that access is actually more problematic in the higher need areas, such as those with high populations of low income and populations of color in our country. And so there's a social justice issue relative to this accessibility as well. Now, in terms of developing a partnership to across your community to deliver community-based youth programs and services, we know that there's a lot of benefits to your organization for doing that. And I don't think I need to spend a lot of time convincing you that there are these benefits to providing partnerships. However, the main thing to remember is that it's this idea of creating synergy, and that we can do a lot more together with other organizations than we can all do doing our separate thing. And so if we find ways within the community to come together and sort of work together, then and additionally to be more effective and more efficient, there's going to be a lot wider reach, and the community itself is going to benefit by us using our talents together. In addition to the organization, there are community benefits, particularly a higher perceived level of service, more efficient service delivery, fiscal efficiency, which everybody's looking for these days, maximizing those public resources, particularly when they are being underutilized, lower environmental impact, particularly if you are able to share facilities and develop facilities jointly, then you have to build fewer facilities. This idea of social capital and this building informational networks and trust and sharing across the community that then sort of translates into not only your own programs but the entire culture of the community then coming together and really supporting and providing opportunities for youth as something we do, the way things are done around here. And lastly, this integration of services. Some of the best partnership models we see out there are those that I would argue as sort of this, sort of single door, one-stop shopping, where that there's almost a universality of the programs and services that are offered by multiple organizations, and the general public really can't tell where one organization's program stops and another one starts, because it's all so seamless. And I think that's the sort of the idea that really maximizes those services to your clients. But if it only were so easy, and it's not. So there are some barriers out there, and particularly a lot of it is driven by our own organizations, right? So in many cases, the community itself really, and external funders in particular, really want you to work together, but often it doesn't work because there's these clashes between your organization, your staff, and others. And a lot of it comes down to turf battles and egos and lack of trust, and particularly when you feel like there's this unequal cost and benefits that we're committed at a certain level to our mission and to the youth, and they're not so much, and so we don't really trust them. They're really in it for themselves, and they're not in it for the greater good. And so we have this sort of culture sometimes within our organizations that sort of is resistant to these partnerships. And culture is very important because, making sure everybody has a unique organizational culture, and we know that, and we know that you're not going to be able to be exactly the same, but it's making sure that you understand different organizations' cultures and the compatibility of those. An example that I would give is we have viewed a partnership between an organization that was very clinical based, and it was from a health center, and they were very focused on sort of doing things in a very clinical fashion, versus a sort of grassroots nonprofit organization that was very much not clinical. I mean, we talk about the CEO of the organization that drives around and picks up the kids and brings them there, and is sitting on the floor and really getting to know them on a very personal level. And the clash between these two organizations, they tried to form a partnership, was pretty great, and it took a while to overcome that. And so understanding that culture clash is pretty important. And I would like to focus real quickly on this idea of when partnerships are externally driven, they also have a hard time forming lasting and meaningful partnerships that really sort of develop this culture. When they're externally driven, they're often, everybody kind of comes together for this extrinsic motivation, if you will. Let me get my share of this, and let's just do what we're doing. And so you don't have that necessarily that internal drive to really sort of build and foster and work on the partnership when really money is what's driving it. So I give this example from Gamble. It says organizations need to budget a lot more time to get to know each other a lot better before walking down the aisle. Otherwise, they may face the fates of many couples who rush to the altar, unhappy marriages, or costly divorces. And this is something we see quite often, particularly when the motivation, the impetus for this partnership is driven by external funders or other types of external pressures. And so the example that I like to use is and you can look this up, what is the success rate of marriages on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette? And so you think about in terms of the motivations for we've got the chance to win $1 million or a chance to be famous, and so we're going to do this, we're going to go get married. And so if you haven't looked on Wikipedia already, you'll find out that it's obviously very low. I think there's only one couple that's actually lasted in those two seasons or two series over time. And we see the same things happening with our organizations. When they rush down the aisle for some external reward without taking the time to build this culture of partnership, then they oftentimes set themselves up for failure as well. And so that's why Gamble and others urge you to spend time to get to know each other first, understand those aspects of egos and cultures, etc., and then start to put together the partnerships. And in many cases, what's interesting is that you already know these organizations in many cases. I mean, many of you are working in communities where you know all the players in town in terms of when we think about youth. You know these organizations. You've already developed in many cases relationships with them, and now it's just time to take that next step to say, okay, we're all in this together, and let's get to know each other a little bit better and build that sort of that trust within each other, that then we can sort of take the next step in this process to work together more intentionally and more formally in many cases.